What's going on, everyone? This video we're looking at the MMA fight for tomorrow evening. We have the main event, Cynthia Calvillo versus Jessica I. We have 10 fights scheduled, as one fight has been canceled. But let's get right into it. Before we get started, I appreciate it if you hit the like on the video and subscribe if you have not already. This card is definitely not as exciting as last week's card, but hopefully it can be better for DFS as last week's. It was a disaster personally. Hopefully some of you guys did well, but I, for one, am looking forward to this fight card. We will start with the main event, Cynthia Calvillo versus Jessica I. Calvillo has just looked much better throughout her career. I has been up and down. Calvillo has just been solid. She's on the rise. I think she will get the job done. She's only a minus 125 favorite. I definitely think it should be higher than that. I think the reason it's not that high is because Jessica I just has some advantages in height and weight, and I mean height and reach, also a weight, but Calvillo is 2-0-1 in her last three fights. She had an impressive victory versus Courtney Casey back in 2019. She had a draw versus a tough fighter, Marina Rodriguez, in her last fight. Meanwhile, I is 2-1 in her last three fights. She had a unanimous decision victory and a submission victory back in 2018 versus Kaylin Kuchagan. I think Calvillo will get the job done. And on Draftkings and Fanduel, she is cheaper. Not very often you get an underdog who is cheaper on the main event. So cheaper than the opponent, especially. So Calvillo looking pretty solid this week, or for tomorrow at least. Robertson versus Marvin Vittori. This fight was supposed to happen before, but Robertson couldn't make weight. Looks like he's made weight, hopefully. Robertson has some upside for DFS because he has shown to have victories with submission victories and TKO victories. So this fight can definitely be finished inside the distance. I do think Robertson should not be a plus 180 underdog. I think he definitely can make this a competitive fight. And I think it's going to be a close fight, but I don't really agree with Vittori being a minus 210 favorite. I think on the sites where Robertson is very cheap, he definitely has the upside to get the win in this fight. And even if he wins, he definitely has the upside to make the optimal, just because if he does win, it's probably going to finish inside the distance. Charles Rosa versus Kevin Aguilar. Rosa got absolutely embarrassed by Nate Landwehr in his last fight. He got absolutely outclassed on the ground, which is kind of his specialty. So I think he'll be able to get back on track, though, in this fight versus Aguilar. Aguilar is not looking to take guys down like Landwehr was, and he's not as much of a factor in the grappling department either. So Rosa, if they can get the fight on the ground, I think he will have the advantage there. And Rosa definitely has shown submission upside in his past, in his career, and usually shows a bounce back ability. Every time he loses, he tends to bounce right back. So Rosa, I think I can lean with him as a slight underdog, maybe a decent underdog, but I think Rosa will get the job done, especially if people are afraid to play him. I think that makes them even more appealing. Andre Fili versus Charles Jourdain. Jourdain is looking like a rising star out of Canada. He has a tough task, though, against Andre Fili. Fili is just bigger than him, much bigger reach. But Jourdain is looking to finish you. He goes in recklessly. He has all 10 of his victories have come inside the distance, so you have that working for him if you want to go with him as an underdog play. I think it's going to be close, though. I'm not sure if I'm super comfortable playing Jourdain, maybe in a cash game, but in GPPs, I would play him a decent amount, but probably would roll with Feely a little bit more. But Jourdain as a sleeper play, think he's not the worst play, especially if you play 150 lineups. I would probably sprinkle Jourdain in like 20 to 25%. Next up, Jordan Espinosa versus Marc De La Rosa. De La Rosa is 0-3 in his last three fights. Espinosa is 14-7 overall. He has looked up and down recently. Last two fights, he got absolutely smashed. But this is a fight that I think he can get back on track, though. It's just against a pretty inferior opponent. De La Rosa is looking like he might be on the way out. Just doesn't really match up to Espinosa on the feet. Espinosa is going to be looking to throw some kicks, punches, and I think he will get the job done pretty handily today or tomorrow night. So, going to be rolling with Espinosa. Next up, we have Agapova versus Cyphers. Cyphers should get absolutely beat up in this fight. Could be finished very quickly. Agapova has just a huge height advantage, a huge reach advantage, and throughout her career has just shown a little bit more upside than Hannah Cipher is a 10-5 record. Doesn't put up a much of a fight in some of her most recent performances. She just fought a little bit ago and got absolutely destroyed, so her body might still be like feeling some of the effects from her last fight. Meanwhile, Agapova just has the ability to knock fighters out, and I think this could definitely be a spot where she just puts an end to Hannah Cipher's night very, very early. In her last three fights, she is 2-1 with a TKO victory and a submission victory. Meanwhile, Hannah Cipher is 1-2 in her last three fights with two straight losses. Give me Agapova for sure. Then Mirab Devalshvi, I will rock with him for sure. He's probably one of my favorite fighters on the night. Not that it's going to come as a shock at a minus 750 favorite, but the thing that you love about him is that he is facing a pretty fighter that not many people know about, and he just loves to take fighters down. A 7.8 takedown average, which is insane. He had 12 takedowns of Casey Kenny the other day, and he's going to be looking to take down Lopez very, very often. So give me Mirab for sure, one of my favorite plays of the day. And then we have Julia Alvila versus Mazzini, whatever her name is. Alvila should get the job done. She is 7-1. She has pretty impressive victories recently. She's 3-0 with a unanimous decision victory, a TKO victory, and a TKO victory in the last three fights. Meanwhile, Gina is 1-2. She won her most recent fight, but then she got knocked out TKO in the first round, and she got lost versus unanimous decision. I think Alvila will get the win, and I think she will, definitely be a play that you want to target on DraftKings and Fanduel, even though she's a little bit expensive. Now we have Tyson Nam versus Zarog Adeshev. I think Adeshev can definitely be a play as an underdog. He's a slight underdog, minus plus 110 if that's correct. Not sure if they have updated it yet, but if that's the case, and Nam looks like he might be decently popular, just give me Adeshev just based on that. And Nam also just doesn't look that good very recently. He got absolutely beat up in his last two fights. He's 1-2 in his last three. Meanwhile, Adeshev is 3-0, and that's why he's got the opportunity. But the competition that he faced is definitely not as tough as the competition Nam was facing. But I think Adeshev, especially how cheap he is on some of the sites, especially FanDuel, I think he looks fine. And then Anthony Ivy, I like him a lot just because he's going to be finishing a lot of fighters. He's 3-0 in his last three fights with three TKO victories, which is great. Meanwhile, Aguilar is 2-1 with a unanimous decision victory and a TKO victory. I think Ivy is looking like a decent play. He just is much bigger in this fight, 5'9 versus 6'2. More reach as well. Ivy looks like a tremendous play. And we'll start with DraftKings. Over on DraftKings, we have your most expensive fighter of the day is Alvila. Now, not that should surprise many as one of the heaviest favorites, but I will go with Marab as my favorite fighter. As a guy above 9,000, I like the most. We have definitely have some cheap plays that you can look at, like the main event. The favored women in the main event is cheaper than the underdog, which is very, very surprising. But give me Cynthia Calvillo at 7,900 for sure. I think Charles Rosa looks decent at 7,800. He tends to bounce back after losses, and I think he can do that once again tomorrow night. Adeshev at 7,700. That looks fine. He's a little bit more expensive than I would like, but I think you could definitely play him if you want. You have Robertson. I also do think he can pull off the upset. And we have Jourdain. A little bit risky, but definitely would play him and have him in your player pool for sure. But I like these two fighters a ton, and then I'd say go with maybe I kind of go with Charles Rosa. Hopefully, he can get the job done tomorrow night. But usually, he can bounce back after losses, and I think this can definitely be one. And he's one of the fighters that if he does win, he's usually gonna be putting up a decent score. Like some of these fighters, they win, but they don't throw a lot of strikes. Or Rosa can get guys on the ground, get points that way. Decent striker, so the he has many different ways that he can accumulate fantasy points, which is why he's appealing. So those three fighters I like a decent amount, and then if I had to go up with another one, maybe like Ivy looks very, very solid. As a cheap play, you could look at Adeshev or Jourdain or Robertson, but probably just rock with these four and go with Ivy. I think these four look very, very good, especially the upside that Ivy, Calvillo, and Deshalvi present. And that's the DraftKings breakdown. I will go on over to Fanduel now. All right, for Fanduel, we have Deshalvi at just $20. I think he has the highest ceiling on the slate, or definitely one of the highest ceilings. I will like him to play him and probably play him at captain for sure. Then we have Julia Alvila, looks very solid at $19. We have Agapova, I love her at $17 with the upside that she presents against a pretty inferior opponent in Hannah Cyphers. We have Cynthia Calvillo, definitely want to play her. And then Anthony Ivy is only $16. I think these four look like a solid core to build on over on FanDuel. And still easy with $16. Actually, yeah, $16 average, $31, so $15 player and a $16 player. Fill out the rest of the spots, but I think these four look very solid. Then you also have some cheap plays I mentioned over on DraftKings. I think all of them are still in play over on FanDuel. So yeah, that's pretty much the breakdown for the tomorrow's UFC fights. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. You can drop a like if you enjoyed, and good luck tomorrow.